everybody. Welcome back to another Great Lakes podcast. Today's going to be a little bit of a informational podcast. We got two hunters with me, two close friends with me today that are, first year for both of them. So going into their second year for both.
Going into second.
And they're going to be asking questions about, whether bird nerd stuff, like questions about ducks, geese, habits for each one of them, blinds, hide, how to shoot at them, whatever it may be. But yeah, I'll introduce you guys. Nolan, you want to go first?
Yep. My name is Nolan Japaniak. This is it's going to be my second year coming up for bird hunting, and I've mainly been a fisherman most of my life. I just kind of started getting into all the hunting aspects, and I've been enjoying it.
My name's Trevor Goodman. So I met Kyle last year playing beer league softball. Mm-hmm. And he was talking to me about hunting a bunch, and I had done it earlier in my life and kind of gotten away from it. But it's definitely something that interested me, and he was nice enough to let me come out and love the hell out of it last year. So
last year was your first year doing it, though?
Yeah.
Like absolutely. Waterfowl-wise?
Absolutely. I've never waterfowl hunted. I did a little bit of turkey and deer earlier in my life, but I never waterfowl hunted.
Yeah, and then last year was your first year ever getting
first year ever. Yep.
Waterfowl.
Yep. I've been on a couple of deer hunts, but
now you
for the first year.
For you though, you're more of just waterfowl or more water.
Yes.
In itself,
yes.
Not field hunting.
No, I actually, and there wasn't one time last year where we did a field hunt. It was mainly all water hunts.
I got you.
Completely different than me. I've never done a water hunt other than like on Thanksgiving morning.
Or something.
Well, yeah. Other than Thanksgiving morning, I went out with my buddy and we didn't see a thing.
That's right. I remember that now.
Yeah, we did not see a thing. He dropped his gun in the water, and other than that, uneventful.
So your first your water hunt. What was your thoughts on it?
It was awesome getting out there early in the morning, setting up the decoys. I mean, completely different than what I'm used to.
Right.
In that first couple months of last year, but I mean, setting up the decoys on the water and then getting back up onto the mainland. We didn't hunt out of the boat. We hunted up on the rocks, but we saw some birds go by early in the morning, but after that, pretty slow. I mean, there were thousands of birds on the water that day. Right. There were, but they wouldn't come up to us.
Right. So, we're still southeast Michigan, so both of you guys are, we're both hunting the same areas, but obviously, like I said, like we're field, water, whatever it is. So you're probably hunting where he usually hunts. Like what? Like you know what I mean? Like we're both in the same areas. What is your thought on the water hunting?
I love water hunting. It's I guess I don't have a whole lot of experience in the field, but basically what Trevor was saying. It's just getting out there nice and early. We usually take, about a 15-20 minute boat ride to where we're going. So, nice and cold. And for the most part, that I think is one of the biggest differences is, you'll have wind hunting in a field, but wind on the water is, you're setting decoys. You're basing it off of, spotlights.
It's a complete different thing.
Oh, totally different, and you're dealing with waves and, if, you don't have long enough lines. You got some decoys that start floating away, and they end up in different spots. It's like,
and you guys are mostly diver hunting, so it's not shallow water. It's deep water.
No. We're 9 times out of 10 we're setting decoys in anywhere from 10 to close to 20 foot of water.
Right. So not trying to talk for Trevor wise, but for us, like with him hunting with us last year, we're hunting what? 6 to 10 guys. I think our biggest group was 14 last year.
Yeah, sometimes it's a big group. Sometimes it's 4 or 5.
Depending on how many birds I've seen in the field or whoever was scouting out, whatever it was. How many guys do you usually hunt with?
We're anywhere from 4 guys to we've had 8, 9, 10 guys on the boats, which it's a lot harder because you can't spread out. You're stuck on the boat,
right.
So we have my buddy's 21-foot boat that we can fit 5, but you're kind of on top of each other. And then my other buddy has an 18-foot flat bottom, which comfortably fits 4. So we're pretty packed in there, right, for the most part.
Now, are you as bad of a shot as Trevor is, or no?
Oh no.
Give me a break. Give me a break.
Oh, no.
No. So let's break it off. I mean, what's we'll start with you, Trevor. What's your kind of first question getting into it?
I mean, I went into this, I wasn't even thinking about hunting on the water. So my first question, I mean, what goes into a good hunt? I mean, there's so much effort and time that you put into it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was blessed to be able to come along for the ride last year. And I get that, you know, if I was just on my lonesome and didn't have you to help me, you know, guide me, you know, I would have been completely lost. So,
Well,
I mean, what's the first thing that you thought about when you started getting into the waterfowl hunting? You know, what's the first thing that you tried to secure?
when I first started getting into it, and me and Trav have talked about it in previous podcast wise, is you know we started hunting my cousin's backyard and didn't know a thing about it. We were never scouted. We were just showing up, and we're like, hey, the birds are probably gonna be here. You know, kind of like how the water is. You kind of just show up and set up. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And you know, as years went on, there was a lot of mistakes. There was a lot of pros, whether it is from calling the shot or you know where to set up, the wind. You know, looking at like the future. My biggest thing right now is a scout and a hide, which you know now, which you probably will this year. The hide is everything, and the scout is everything. Because the decoy set up in the field wise, you know, you can kind of say that about the water, I feel like. But the water is more like you're just playing the wind. Those divers
The
are
wind
just
is
kind of rolling in there.
completely has full control of your hunt.
Right. So I mean, so is the field wise, but you know, unless the wind's coming right at our face in the field, like I can kind of get those birds to where I want them to set up at. You know, the scout, like I said, is number one. How the birds are out in the field. Where can we set up the blinds at in the field to be concealed, and how many blinds are we going to be running? And I mean, you see me last year, and you're probably going to see me this year. Knowing like, I'll get 30, 40 phone calls a day, all week long.
Oh yeah.
And trying to answer questions that I don't even know yet. But like, it's just, I'll go back to the scout and the hide is the biggest thing, and then, you know, sometimes you're going to have to, you know, get defeated a bunch to kind of get to know it. No one's just going to know everything about everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I got a question for you. Kind of piggyback off that. You said, you know, obviously when you're working through all the years that you did, what would you say is the most common mistake that you would make, whether it's, you know, setting up, maybe with the wrong wind direction, or, you know, not doing the spread quite right? Like, what is your most common mistake that even today that you still might make?
I am super anal about the decoys. Like, I'll move it, like 5-6 times before the sun even comes up. Like, if one's looking weird at me, I'll literally move it, like, just 10 degrees over, just because it looks weird to me, you know what I mean? But the biggest mistake, I would say, not talking to the guys enough before the hunt about, you know, who's calling. Because calling in the field is a big thing. I've been seeing these birds all week long. The guys that we bring aren't seeing them all week long. So if I say call heavy or call light or whatever it is, like if we're going to give it to them, we're going to give it to, like but it all goes like with the hunt, with the calling as well. You got to figure out what the birds want that day. But like communicating with the guys like on what's going on and stuff, which I would say that's like a big I don't know, thing that I don't do the best on in the morning, I guess.
I mean,
I do talk in the morning.
Every morning, you know, when we're ready to go, everything's all set. There's always a conversation about safety. Every single morning, there's a conversation about safety. You know, the dogs are in the field. Doesn't matter if the birds are still out there. We're not shooting, right? That's the first thing that goes on, and after that, I mean, it's different every time.
It depends on who you hunt with, though.
It does. It totally depends. It's different. It's different every time, but I definitely have seen the things that you're talking about. over-calling or under-calling or
the pie faces where people are like looking straight up at the birds.
that's one of the big ones.
Down. Like, I tell you to get your head down. Like, it's fine to like keep your eyes level with the A-frames, but like when you're like chin's above the A-frame, like that's a whole different thing. Like, get your ass in the blind right now and don't look up until I call a shot. Like, it's that simple.
That's probably one of the hardest things, like, even for us, when we're out there is like, you want to look at the birds, you want to see them coming in, because you want to, get your shot placement right away, but
it's tough.
You
want to look up at those birds and see what they're doing. I mean, it's just discipline. I mean, you're going to see them when you look up because when you call that shot, they're going to be right there in your face.
Right.
So it's awesome to look up, especially when you got multiple flocks up in the sky. I mean, it's crazy to look up at.
And I'm calling a shot at what, 20, 30 yards maybe? I mean, some of them are damn
they're
close.
Usually close.
They're close, and they're when them big geese are coming in that close. I mean, they look like you can touch them with your gun barrel.
Oh yeah.
But I'll say another thing is though too that I look at the like if I'm having like an off week, and this usually happens like later in the year, I'll look at the wind for now, like in the morning, compared to like what it's going to be like during shooting light. Like, so I won't look at it like the wind's going to completely shift directions, and then we're running out into the field right when the birds get off the roost, and we're screwed because everybody's sitting out in the blind. Like, I just look at it now and I'm like, well, that's how it is right now. We should be fine. Well, everybody knows, like, during fall, like around here anyway, that wind changes so fast, especially on the water for you guys. Like, that's a big thing you guys got to be looking at too.
It's huge, and you're also dealing with the current too. So, you get one light wind in the morning, and you set your decoys up to follow that. And so they all lay one certain way, and you could be we're hunting public for the most part. So we're getting there super early. And, that wind could shift around and it change the whole spread and it looks completely different. But, you're coming up on shooting light and, do you want to risk running out there in your boat trying to fix them? And then, you got birds coming up, like coming out from their roosts.
Right.
And you got them coming off the lake. So it's, it's kind of a gamble. You just got to pay attention and, basically do the best you can.
Now, I'm kind of ignorant on long lines. That's what you guys are running, right?
We're using them this year. We've used them in the past. Well, my group has. But for the most part, we're just throwing them. They each have their own, like.
So you're throwing a lot of singles then?
Yeah, all singles. We're making them. Well, we have a layout boat this year, which is it's going to be completely different. I'm super stoked for that. But yeah. So all of ours is mainly singles. So that's the hard part too. Is as soon as you start throwing the singles around, you get the the spread that you want.
Right.
Anything could happen with them.
Now, are you guys talking? Like, I heard you say like the same way. Are you guys rigging those decoys up differently? Because I'm like big on like when we are hunting puddles or like when we're hunting the mallards and stuff. Like, are we trying to hide a beer crack? Jesus Christ! What are we?
I was trying not to put it right in the mic, but
you're fine. Like what we're setting. Like I'll throw the rigs out like where one of the hooks are going through the front and one hook's going through the back or one hook's going through the middle. Like, do you guys do any of that or no?
Yeah, we have them. And obviously we have like you have sleepers.
Right. But like on the keel itself,
yes. In the short answer, yes.
Okay.
We have them rigged different for the most part. You're just kind of going as you go. It's like, basically, you got 2-3 guys in the front, one guy driving the boat, and for the most part, 2 people are agreeing on where they want them, how they want them, and then you have your guys throwing them in. So it's basically like you're just kind of holding up a decoy, like, hey, where do you want this one? No, don't throw that one there. You throw that one here is basically how it is. But it's we don't get super picky just because the wind and the current, they're changing them anyways, so it's kind of that's going to do it anyways. So
now for diver hunting, like we've in a sense started our early season like ritual, I guess you want to say. We got one blind set We're gonna be setting up another blind this weekend. Hopefully, I gotta get a hold of the guys. We got a trailer day coming up real soon where we're going to be emptying out the trailer and washing decoys and brushing and blinds and all that kind of stuff. I mean, are you guys setting like kind of getting ready as well, or?
Oh yeah, no, we're definitely getting ready. Usually we'll get out for early teal. You know, it's not, we really don't hunt teal per se.
Just getting the itch out of there.
Yeah, you're just getting the itch out, and you're figuring out like what everyone's role is, what everyone's going to do.
Right.
And I mean, divers don't come down right away either, so when it's starting, early season, you're not getting those divers. So we're kind of stuck in bays and, we're shooting
puddlers and everything. That's what I was going to ask you too. Like what is it? By mid to late October, I'd say.
That's around it. This past season, we started seeing them earlier than normal, which was cool. So we were able to get out, but it was still pretty slow off the start because you're not getting those big rafts coming down quite yet. But as soon as it starts getting real cold, and you're starting to like see freezing rain, that's when you're going to hit them pretty hard out of the lake.
I mean, this year and last year, this past year, I should say, it was probably it seemed tough. I mean, it was tough for us. Our ducks never showed up till the last 2 weekends of season, really.
That is very true, and I mean, when they showed up, they showed up.
Murdered them, yeah.
When they showed up, they showed up for sure.
But like, was it tough for you guys out there in the water this past year?
It was. The first couple times, because there's a big switch between when we're sitting in bays shooting puddlers versus when we're out shooting divers.
Right,
So the first I don't know, I'd probably say first 3-4 weekends, it was it was pretty slow. We didn't limit out those first 3 or 4 weekends. Not even close. We'd go out, we'd shoot a couple. We started seeing the big rafts coming in, but nothing was really coming in like close to us. That's where I think like this year is when we have that layout boat. That's going to help a lot with being able to get out there.
Here's a question for you, which Goodman, you probably won't know just because you haven't really hunted the water as much. Everybody always talks about how dumb divers are, right?
Oh yeah.
Do you think so? Okay, so here's my thought process on this, because if we go out into a field and the birds are fresh to the area, like new birds, they don't know what's going on to that area, right? Like you can throw anything out there and they had, that must just have been there. You know what I mean? Do you think people say divers are so dumb because there's so many divers in the lake that they don't know like what's real and what's not? Like they don't know if your boat's really supposed to be out in the middle of the lake, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
no, I kind of got like a 2-part answer on that. Why I think, obviously, like I don't have a whole bunch of experience, but kind of what I figured out from doing it is, for the most part, like, so we'll have, obviously you still have mallards coming in off the lake, and then you have your divers coming in. Well, divers fly a lot lower.
Right.
They're right on the water. That's how you know that you have divers coming in, and they're a lot smaller.
Right.
So when you have divers coming in, they're coming in and they see the decoys right on the water, so they're coming in, swinging out and trying to land. Right. Where when we have mallards come in, mallards will see us before anything. We're seeing mallards, and as soon as like they get a hint that something's not right, they're turning off. It is very rare. I think maybe 2 or 3 times where we were able to shoot at mallards last year.
But do you think that's just because like there's so much pressure, like in the the zones, or over in Canada, whatever it is?
I almost think that I would say that, and I just feel like they kind of are a lot more skittish. Like divers won't have a second thought about going in.
Right.
If they're going in, they're going in. And you'll watch it, like we don't do a whole lot of calling, but we'll have some kind of like buzzing to the sides of us, and we give them a little chirp. They're coming right in where, I mean, mallards will they'll stay way on the outside, and then they'll come way up to take a look, and then as soon as they see something's not right, they're leaving.
See, that's what I think the difference is, though, because like the field hunting wise, the first big mallard hunt we've had, and I'd probably say the second one too. The back-to-back weekend ones.
Yep.
The first one, I mean, we were shooting mallards and geese
Yep.
while people were still laying down in the field out there. And I just don't think they were pressured birds compared to like the lake wise. You know what I mean? But I think there's so many divers out there that they don't see everything, or like you're not shooting at the same divers every day like you are mallards or puddlers.
No,
you know
there's
what I mean?
there's no shot. And I mean, you'll see them like like you'll watch them out in the lake all day long. You're focusing on the lake, you're looking out, and you're looking into basically this blue abyss, and you'll see these massive rafts come up, and they're moving all around out there, and then basically what you'll have happen is you'll have a big flock, big group that'll like kind of come in and like they'll slowly work their way in, and then the ones that you end up getting, like you don't get the whole big flock, you'll get like 6 of them that cut off from it and start heading in. It's very rare that you'll have that entire group come in. I haven't seen it. I've heard that they've had, but it's pretty rare.
Right.
So I don't know that much about scouting on the water. How does that work compared to scouting on the land? Are you guys scouting, or you just know the birds are in the area, you're going out there setting up based on what you see in the morning? Is on Tuesday, Wednesday, are you taking the boat out, checking around? Are you using binos from the land? I'm ignorant to what that looks like.
Yeah, so when we go out and scout, we'll take my buddy's boat out, and
Don's usually sleeping.
Yeah.
He doesn't see shit anyways.
And it usually will go kind of the day before, and it's also kind of like, I mean, you're hunting the lake, so there's they're kind of following the shoreline for the most part, so you're going to have ducks. It's mainly based on weather. If they're super pressured from the lake, they're going to want to come into land more. But I mean, you'll have them bluebird days where you'll watch them, big flocks out on the lake just stay out there and not move because they're comfortable out there. But if it's, super rough or it's snowing or raining, that's when they're going to want to work in. And
I will say, like, I haven't hunted the water in so many years, probably 4 or 5 years probably. But I will say, like, knowing where, maybe there's flat surface where there's weeds still growing, or rocks that collect a lot of seaweed on it, or whatever it may be, that kind of collects a lot of like diver ducks and puddler ducks to like kind of get in there. So you got to kind of know when I used to scout like all the time. I would go like park to park to park, or like any spot where I could see where the water was at. I'd see where the ducks were at that time. Maybe they're not there in the morning time, but in the afternoon they're kind of starting to slowly come in there, and figure out where like the sandy bottoms are, or where they can kind of dive down and figure it out. It's not always way out in the middle of the lake. They could be really anywhere in the river.
Yeah.
But for the puddler standpoint of it all, it's I feel like around here anyway, not trying to talk about anywhere else, but it's hard to scout unless you just super heavily scout the day before, and you're going to hunt the next day for sure in areas where like the zones or something.
Yeah.
Because the other areas, like, they're not that big where, I mean, granted, there are some spots where not a lot of people can get to, not a lot of people know about, but there's so much pressure around here. Puddlers are just so hard to get on top of.
Yeah.
That's kind of what also I've noticed a lot too. And this, this is just all my personal experience. I could be completely wrong, but just watching it over the past year and like how it breaks down is, you also have to think too that the lake really doesn't get super deep. There's a lot of like sandbars, there's a lot of shallow areas, and that's kind of where they hang out. I mean, they obviously call them divers for a reason, because they can get down to little fish and everything. So like watching them out in the lake, your mind wants to go to, oh, it's deep out there, what are they doing? But they could be sitting on 10 foot of water, like right where we're hunting, but they're 2-3 miles away from us.
Right.
So, but a lot of the early season is, when we're ripping through the bays, we're looking for, little ponds, and we call them the cabbage patch, so we're looking for like little ponds in there,
Pockets
where, little pockets, and, places along, the edges where, you're getting a lot of ducks hanging out.
And so are you hunting the same spots over and over? Because it sounds like there's new ducks coming in throughout the year, but
You can get away with it a lot more than, say, like, I think field hunting anyways, right? Because it's like, if they're kind of, getting acquainted to a certain area and then, they get spooked out of there, obviously they're not going to stick around. But, I mean, there's, kind of fewer areas that, they really hang out for the most part. So you can kind of, I mean, obviously you don't want to overhunt anything, but, we've showed back to us, the same spot that, like the following week, and we're, still doing pretty good when we're shooting inland.
And that's the same thing with like us. Like we got, I don't know, 3 to 4 roosts that we usually hunt right around there, like different spots, different cities, whatever it is. That's the whole purpose of hunting those different spots, because then if you burn them out of this field one day, you burn a different roost the next day. Well, those birds might show back up, and for us anyway, since we're weekend warriors, like they can have all week to settle back down into that field, but you can't be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And this might be a thing for you guys as well. For me anyway, in the fields, I never try to run the same exact spread, especially in the same like area off the same roost. If the birds have seen it once, I'm gonna try to change it up a little bit, whether that be the same like style of spread but less decoys or more decoys or whatever it may be. Like I always give them something different to look at. For you guys, it might be running 2 dozen decoys instead of 6 to 7 dozen decoys. Like it's last year in the like later 2 years ago, like later in the season 2 years ago, I started realizing like realism is like the biggest thing that you can possibly think of. All these guys go out and they buy 20 dozen, 40 dozen dive bombs or whatever it is. You don't need that.
No.
I know some guys, the tri-state guys that we've talked to or talked about in previous podcasts, they run 12 DSD decoys, like goose decoys, year round, and they do pretty dang good over 12 decoys year round. Just 12 decoys.
Yeah.
That's it. And they hammer them.
That is foreign to me, but to pedal back a little bit, like you're talking about, you got to really scout the night before your hunt. It's just completely different to me because, we'll complete a hunt, we'll finish a hunt, we'll take a couple photos, and then we'll go scout.
Yeah.
Same day, right?
Yeah.
We'll scout 5 days in advance, 4 days in advance for our next hunt, and usually that does us pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's more scouting that goes in between that time period, but I just couldn't imagine not being able to get out and scout 4 days, 5 days in advance because you don't know where those birds are going to be.
Well, it's not only that the birds on the water. That's what you're talking about, the water, right?
Yeah,
Right? Yeah. So the water, it's difficult because like you have those guys that are working those 4-10 days, or they are working Sunday through Wednesday, or just some weird schedules, or working nights and they hunt in the mornings. You got guys out there every single day of like as soon as duck season starts, you got guys out there every single day hunting those birds. So they're finding those little tiny pockets way back where no boat can get to, where you got to walk back a mile in there, and you're not going to kill them if you're not willing to put the work in. A lot of these guys are sitting out in the middle where everybody usually hunts, and it's like you got to get way back in there and put in that work. Just because you're hunting public land, don't make an excuse on that's why you're only shooting this amount of birds. They're there. You just got to get smart with it. That's why I think like even later in the year, you run 2-3 dozen coot decoys, like in the zones or the managed units. You run 2 to 3 dozen coot decoys. You throw 2 swans out there. Realism is the biggest thing. People are gonna look at you crazy, even maybe on the lake, like with divers. But realism is the biggest thing. Like if you can make that spread look as realistic as possible. I don't know if you've ever hunted like Vermont.
The Vermont, yeah.
So Vermont, like you'll see mallards just dump out of nowhere and dump in with a bunch of coots. But every single guy out there, and I'll even talk about the lake, like every guy out there's got in the Vermont anyway, has got 2 to 5 dozen mallard decoys, 2 spinners, and they got a beaver tail blind. That's 9 out of 10 guys out there.
Yeah. That's
Nine-
and kind of what you're saying is like even it's crazy when you're rolling up to a spot, usually afternoon hunts, because you can see other people's spreads and
Right.
where they're set out. Like there's been a couple of times where we're rolling up to a spot and I'm like, oh, there's like
right.
there's some ducks sitting there, and then as we get closer, it's like, oh, there's a boat right there. Like that's a
Right.
spread. That's huge, because I mean if it can fool a hunter, it's a lot more likely to fool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. But like, so can the field hunts. But it depends on how many times those birds have seen that same.
Oh,
sight.
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because, but that's a big thing too for us. Like in the field wise, we're not gonna throw out 200 decoys out in the field if there's 200 or 100 birds in the field previously.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you have to understand like the amount of birds that are in the area. Did you just burp?
No, I slapped the mic a little bit on accident.
Okay, I was just making
That was
sure.
my bad.
But no, like just make sure though, like what you see out there. Like that's why the scouting is effective though. Like you have to understand what's out there, and like I said though, like throw coots out there, throw swans out there, throw something different than everybody else. Throw 6-7 decoys out there and no spinners one day. Who knows what that could do for you?
100%.
For sure. So, I mean, we talked a lot about the water, but let's bring it back to the basics a little bit
Yeah.
here. Right.
I agree.
So we got pretty in deep.
Who cares about the water?
I know.
Yeah.
I know it. So that is a little foreign to me, just because I don't know it.
Oh, it's full.
I was just- I showed up, hopped on the boat, and I was there one day, and that's it. But I mean, I couldn't imagine what you and Trav went through trying to get into this sport. I mean, I was blessed to just kind of be along for the ride last year, and I soaked up a lot of knowledge. To start, I mean, obviously you got to have somewhere to hunt, right? You got to have land that you own, someone that you know that allows you to hunt. So what was it like trying to figure out, okay, we know we want to shoot birds. Where are we going to shoot them at?
Well, I will say, like, the beginning of it, we started getting into the field hunts. We started at my cousin's house, and then I'd have my dad go drive around. And one of the first fields that we got onto, but the next door neighbor had a big sign across like his garage. Well, my dad ended up working with him prior. So he started talking to him. Oh, yeah, you can hunt this field. Oh, so and so farms this field. You know him. And then my dad really helped us out with. Thanks a lot, Rip. No, he helped us out a lot, like with like the local stuff, because he ended up working with a lot of the guys around there.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely was a struggle, and especially it was a struggle with being so young, because I've had guns drawn on me. I've had dogs chase me, like biting on my heels, running from the front door like crazy. Shit my pants, running out the door. But it was stressful though, because there was a lot.
Yeah.
There was a lot more no's than yeses, and then the farm that we usually hunt now. I mean, both of you guys have seen the main farm. Like the farm that we have now, it took us 3-4 years to really get in with him to the point where we have everything.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't understand, like, which I didn't understand either. Start small. Start like, just, can I pigeon hunt around here? Can I train my dog like in the field next door? Like, you got to gain that trust, but you can't just go to some giant farmer and expect them to give you everything that they're like they've worked all their life for. That's their living. You can't just expect that, So I mean, it was very difficult, but it takes time, and I would literally find geese out in a field, or ducks, whatever it was, and I would have to have my dad go ask for it, because they're gonna say no to a young kid because they just think I'm gonna trash the place.
Yeah.
So my dad then would go out and ask for it, and then we'd get it, and then come to find out, I would be more like I would be more in contact with the farmer and get closer with the farmers or property owners than my dad would, you know. But it's just it's definitely a process and a long process that
you got to build that trust over time. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't just expect to knock on somebody's door and them just give you that full trust. You know,
No, for
whether
sure.
it starts with, yeah, you can go ahead and scout, let me know when you're going to hunt, and I'll tell you yes or no, or, you know, it's the dogs chasing you with the shotgun.
right.
You don't know what it's going to be, but it sounds like you definitely got to build that trust. But I couldn't imagine going through that process. It's got to be difficult.
It's
And,
a very difficult, but you can't like shoot yourself in the foot or like get what's the word I'm looking for, like you can't turn yourself down or like get emotional towards like the no's because you're gonna get them.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know? You got to stay positive because the next door or whatever it may be might be that you're looking for. You can't give up on that whole thing.
So you get that first yes, right?
Mhm.
You get that first yes, come hunt on my land, or it's your cousin's property. What are you bringing? First hunt. You don't have a trailer. You don't have
Nothing.
12
You
dozen
you have nothing.
decoys.
What do you
What are
what's
you
your
bringing?
like starter kit
So,
for duck hunting
My
or
first
waterfowl?
time at our cousin's house, me and Trav would borrow our buddies' decoys, would fill the back of my truck up, and I've probably lost 3 or 4 down the road, just like because like we would literally just stack up the whole bed of the truck. Like we'd have to like perfectly place them in the back of the truck and you know go out there. And
Don't trust Kyle with your decoys. Is that what I'm
I
hearing?
think that's
yeah, because I still have the Lucky Bigfoot. The Lucky Bigfoot.
The
That's
Lucky
his.
Bigfoot.
I still have that from him.
Oh, nice,
Yeah.
nice.
So yeah, we have this Lucky Bigfoot that we're like, we're not killing shit if he's not out there. Like we're not killing a thing. And
Talk about realism.
yeah, it's not real
No
at
kidding.
all. But so we literally would fill up the back of the truck, and I think our first blind was it was just a wood pile. We made like a circle around the wood pile, and there's been times where, you know, I didn't know a thing. I didn't know anything about like Instagram or like even people like were posting about that or whatever. I got permission from this pond from this Polish guy, barely speak any English. He was working on a tractor like 20 yards behind us, banging away at this tractor, and I'm thinking these geese can be piling into this pond. Me and my dad are sitting underneath a burlap bag basically, and thinking that we're gonna like just be pounding the geese. I got 6 floaters out there, and maybe 2 full bodies are sitting on the bank, like thinking we're the real deal. I mean, it's just there's things that you're gonna go through. There's afternoons and mornings that you're gonna go to. I mean, I remember one hunt we went out there. I didn't realize the farmer spread manure the night before, so we literally smelled manure the rest of the hunt. We smelled like straight cow shit the entire week after that.
Were you laying in it in your burlap sack?
No, we had layout lines
No.
on. But like,
Okay,
like
okay.
still,
I
though,
just
it
wanna
smelled
make sure.
So
Oh, yeah.
bad though. But there's gonna be those things that you got to just kind of look back at and just laugh at and you know, appreciate what you've been through and where you're at now and build off of that.
Yeah,
you know, you're always
absolutely.
building year after year. I think this year, I'm gonna start writing. I had a buddy of mine actually send me a picture. I'm gonna get like a little journal. As weird as this sounds, I'm gonna get a little journal, and every day, whether I scout or we hunt, I'm gonna write notes on where the birds are, what the weather's like, what the wind's like, and you know, 10 years down the road,
You'll have 10 of them.
well, yeah,
That's a great idea.
I'll-
It's
it really
fantastic.
is.
I'll be
really
able to
is.
understand like this kind of weather. Oh, the bird's probably over in this field over here, or over in this general vicinity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To be able to understand the stuff better and better. No one's ever going to understand what the bird's thinking at the time, but you'll start realizing like a repetition of what they do.
No, there's
on a
definitely
yearly
trends.
basis. Right. Right.
And I kind of wanted to, you know, not switch it over a little bit, but I know you,
Whatever.
know, you can
Here
help
comes
without
more
this.
water.
More
questions.
water.
Okay, yep. No, it's switching it over to like public land hunting too. Like that's big.
Right.
It's
huge,
there's and I know you can help me out, and Trevor, if you have any questions too. I was just from my experience. When you're looking for like
What are you doing, dude? Goodness gracious. Potty
Jeez,
break
Pete.
already.
Yeah. All right. First one.
Whatever.
So
You don't hit the
you know.
pause button, do you?
Huh?
You don't hit the pause button, do you?
No, everybody's
This
just
is
hearing you
rolling.
pissing.
Hey, that's all right.
So my experience with looking for spots for public land is same with you is it's huge in scouting. That's like
Right.
one of the biggest things that you have in common with say you have a couple of fields from farmers or something but having most of it's pretty different if you think about it, other than scouting. There's a lot more like getting there early, getting set up, and you will have people jumping on top of you, hunting 50 feet down the shoreline from you, or
100%,
it's you're gonna deal with that. And like same thing you were saying, when you were knocking on people's doors, you might get shot at,
Right. No, I've heard a
know.
lot of stories in the water that way too, for sure.
Yeah, it's huge, but you just can't get discouraged. If you don't get the right spot. It's happened to us, a couple of times last year where I mean, you think you're the first boat on the water at 3:30 in the morning, but
Right.
you get there and all three of the spots that like if this one doesn't work out, we'll go here or we'll go here. You'll get there and all three of your backup is taken, so
I think the biggest thing on the water is obviously people are going to get that spot. The wind is the biggest thing, though. Make sure you're set up in the right wind.
oh, that's huge.
The points out there, like the island points and stuff like that, like you got to understand, like when you're setting up on the water,
I'm talking about public land and you're talking about water.
Well, yeah, same thing, right?
Yeah.
So when the wind's coming whatever way, and you kind of you're seeing the birds, or they're usually coming from the other way, or they're going to make that loop around. Get to a spot where nobody can get upwind from you, because the second that you allow somebody to get upwind of you, that's where you're going to mess up at.
Yeah. That's also a big thing too. With like a majority of the hunters that you're going to run into on public land are genuine people. They're like you'll have the certain assholes that'll literally set up.
There's always
50
that one.
feet. Yeah, there's always that one. And it always seems like they have all the birds coming to their spread.
Yeah.
But for the most part, if you're in a spot, I mean, we do it. Like we'll see two people not super close to each other, but we're not going to set up right in between them. Like,
Right.
you could theoretically, but like you're not going to. You're gonna.
Another thing is too, like a big thing, which we had this happen too. Not to try to cut you off, but
No.
a big thing is that the shooting ranges from some people. Like we had that one hunt last year. These people are shooting geese at 80, 90 yards up in the sky. Granted, they were in killing the birds.
Doing a little sky busting.
Oh, it was terrible. But like to be able to understand like what's in range and what's not in range, and don't mess it up for the next guy or whatever.
No.
You know what I mean? Like don't just because you're having a crappy hunt, you had a bad setup. I mean, and you should have been 100 yards down, and they're killing the birds. Don't make it to a point where you're ruining somebody else's day. You know what I mean?
Oh no, that's we've I think it was one of our last hunts. We were kind of set up around a corner, and there was a group of guys that were hunting a point.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say they, because obviously you got birds buzzing by you, you're going to want to shoot at them, right? And it was one of the most respectful groups we have been around. I mean, it's not like we were super close. We were in two different areas, but, if you were to draw a straight line, it would have been pretty close.
Right.
And you know, we had birds rounding that corner and they weren't shooting, you know, they weren't doing any pass shots. They were letting them come into us because they had birds coming into them. So, you know, it's all about respect at that point. Right. You know, it's like,
Don't be
I mean,
that
you
guy
could
out
be
there.
shooting at them and then they're just turning and heading right back to the lake. You know, they knew where we were, we knew where they were, and it was, you know, went both ways. You know,
Right.
and that's, you know, you're going to get those guys who are shooting pass shots at them because they want to shoot at birds. But, you know, a lot of the times, you know, you're going to get them respectful hunters out there, and it makes for a great time.
So
I'll let you go. I'm going to take my potty break now.
Okay.
But I got a thing to top that as well. So
All
go
right.
ahead. I'll listen.
Well, back to what Kyle was talking to about, you know, taking pass shots and whatnot. We're set up maybe 500 yards away from these guys. I'm not a good judge of distance, but they're straight out from us. And
But he didn't close the door.
yeah, the guy just doesn't close the door. That's fine. That's fine. So they're taking pass shots at him, and to me, it is what it is, right? You don't know if that's the first time they've been out there that year. They're out there to shoot birds, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, me and Kyle, and I'm sure you're the same way, we don't want to see birds get injured and not go down and live the rest of their life with pellets in them. But,
Which,
go
surprisingly,
ahead.
not to cut you off, I think, don't, like, quote me here, but I think that's 70% of waterfowl has shot in them
Yeah.
that fly away.
Yeah.
You know that?
No kidding.
70% of birds have BBs in them that they're living with. But go
And
ahead.
I will say Kyle is a big proponent of getting the birds in as close as we can before we shoot. That's something that I noticed based off the first hunt, right? And not everybody agrees with it. Some people get upset with it.
Well, there's
you
a
know,
lot of guys that 40 yards out, why don't we call a shot? Or 50
Yeah.
yards out, why don't we call a shot? Well, it's like, I don't want to be chasing birds all around. Like,
No.
if they're not coming in, let's change something up to get them in closer.
Oh,
you know?
the chances of you actually putting a solid shot on a bird past,
Right.
I don't know, what, you know, where you're set up and where your decoys are, like, the back of your decoys should kind of be your last, like, and you should be thinking about it too. That's kind of how we do it. I mean, we have two guys that call the shots. You know, they're the most experienced, and
Right.
because anything past that, there's such a high chance of just injuring the bird, and, you know, not to go back to the water, but, you know, with divers, they're going down. You know,
Right.
they're diving, and then you end up chasing them for
You're
5
never gonna
minutes
find
because
them.
you don't want to just leave them. So, you know, and
and then you miss out on that next flock that comes in.
exactly, yeah, we've had that a million times where, you know, we sent, usually, like, you know, when it gets super cold, we'll, you know, we won't bring the dogs with us because, you know, they're jumping into water versus just running out into a field.
Yeah.
So we'll bring a kayak with us, which, you know, is,
Well, that sounds rough.
yeah, I don't know.
Sounds
I've never been there.
terrible, yeah.
Never done that. But that sounds rough.
It's not fun. And, you know, we've had it where, you know, we had like 2 good flocks come in, and, you know, we'll send the guy out in a kayak, you know, picking up birds, and that's a big reason why we let them get so close, is because, well, you don't want to be kayaking half a mile out to go chase a cripple. So, you know, we'll we definitely like to wait,
Yeah.
you know, till they're basically like the best shot that you can put, I don't know, you know, in the field, but for the most part, we wait till they're basically hovering like a foot over, because you get the best shot. You know, they're going the slowest they can, because those divers are,
Right.
they're
hardy,
moving.
they're hardy birds.
yeah. Oh yeah, no, they'll.
Back to what I was talking about, though.
Yeah, way to cut them off.
Yeah,
No,
sorry.
no,
I'm
I
sorry.
love it. I love the
Gets
conversation.
on one podcast and he's cutting everybody off.
But
Jesus. First time, last time. As I'm cutting you off right now.
yeah, no, it's all good. But like I was saying, you don't know if that was those guys' first time out there this year, right? They're out there to shoot birds. I get it, but it was funny because it seemed like they were flying over their spread and coming right to us, and they would lock up.
Oh, for
And,
sure.
You know, when they didn't shoot at a flock, they'd come in, lock up, and land in our field. And obviously, when they did shoot, they'd turn around and go somewhere else. But it's funny that I just it felt like they saw your spread
Yeah.
and were coming to your spread, and every time they would just fire pop shots when they were just way too far. And
Well,
it is what it is, right? We don't run into that too often.
right.
From this past year, it hasn't been an issue, but the biggest thing to me would be I wouldn't even want to shoot at a bird that far.
Well, it takes the fun out of it because like that's the whole thing. Like there's a talk on social media or just within the waterfowl community about water swatting even or like fields like ground swatting, ground and pounding birds or whatever. It's like if you can get them in there, you just tricked a live animal into your decoys.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Like what? Who cares?
Yeah, I don't know if I would agree with the other side on that. I mean, we've had a lot of times where we're waiting for the birds to land because
they're not moving. Bad shots.
Yeah, we're terrible, dude. Terrible. No, but you watch them hit the water and it's like, all right, now it's because. Especially divers,
right,
they're just fast moving birds. So if you have the opportunity to shoot them while they're at the slowest
right
line, yeah, and like how you said, you tricked them. They're in your spread. They're.
Usually I'll call the shot, or my goal is, and it does depend on like as the year goes on, the birds are gonna get smarter, they're gonna get wiser, which for us like. And for you, even on the water, say the birds hit the mouth of the river, right?
Right.
That's a new area to them. They travel a mile down, 2 miles down, say the wall. That's a new area to them. So they don't know what's going on, though, in those areas. So if we hunt one roost north of us, and they travel down a mile, I shouldn't say mile, but like 10 miles. Excuse me, cheese Pete's. That's a whole new area to them, though.
It's completely different, yeah.
Right, so like it's a different thing, but like once the birds stage up and everything starts freezing up, and they start seeing the spreads, 2-3 times, whatever it is, there's those days where the birds are going to stay out 30 yards out, no matter what you do. They're used to it. They're used to the edge lines. They're used to the layout blinds, which we hardly ever use. They're used to everything. I mean, you're gonna have to start pulling the trigger on that because and there's also a difference between flaring birds and birds that just don't want to like be right there. You know what I mean? Like there's a X within the X is what I always like to say. Like there's a spot in that field where they know the food's at, and if the decoys aren't in that spot, they don't really care to be there. They'll go out 50 yards one way or the other because they know like that's not where they really want to be. They want to be over there. You know what I mean?
Well, that's huge too. Is like being able to spot something like that, watch it happen, and because it almost hits a point where you'll get a trend like that.
Right.
It's at one point it almost switches over to. But that's something that, you can pay attention to and then, like, change.
It's big on the scout, though, too. Even if it's on the water or not, or if it's in the field, there's always that X within the X. They could be on the rock wall, but where at on the rock wall are they at? Where at upwind can you set up to catch them going in to the X so you're not set up behind somebody?
Right.
For us, like it's more of how far down a hedgerow can we go, or which way down a hedgerow can we go? How close can we get to where that X is at? And I feel like that's a big thing while scouting it and seeing. I always say there's two kind of different birds that we're shooting. We're shooting the giants where we're at, or we're shooting the little guys, which I've said a ton during season where. Are they right on top of each other feeding, or are they spread out in the field feeding? Sometimes people say, and it's true, but, if they're spread out, they're all looking for food, whatever it is. But some of those geese that we shot last year, I mean, literally not too much bigger than a mallard. And I feel like those birds literally feed right on top of each other compared to those 10-pound birds that are like, kind of get away from me. I want my own little food area. I always pay attention to the small detail kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Is there a wheat field or a bean field and the weeds are starting to grow up a little bit where we can kind of tuck an A-frame in? Or layout blinds right there? Like, there's always those small little details. Is there a little, like, divot in the rock wall where you can tuck your little boat in and stay out of the wind a little bit better? You know, it's the fine details that you got to look at before a hunt. And, you know, not everybody has the time to scout, but, you know, every bit of scouting is well worth it. You know.
Oh, 100%. And that's you know, when you're talking to somebody new getting into duck hunting too, I'd even say, like, if you don't even feel comfortable like getting out there and hunting, you know, say like this year coming up, just go out and scout, watch birds, like look for areas, like look for trends, look for something that you know you have an X with.
Right.
Like, that's okay. This happens every time this happens, you know.
Right.
Which, you know, for somebody new, you know, if I wasn't as blessed as I was hunting with the guys that I hunt with, and you know, them being full of knowledge for basically any question that I had, like, I would want somebody to tell me, just scout, go watch birds, just literally bird watch for a year, and you know, see what happens, you know, see if you can figure anything out, you know.
Which I'll even tell the guys, like, especially the guys calling, like learning how to call and stuff, go sit next to the roost and just listen to what they sound like and try to mock them. You know, you don't have to be a crazy caller throwing double, triple clucks and spit notes and this, that, and the other. You don't have to do all that. Just find your basic notes and perfect those. You know,
I went out. I got a funny story. We were out. It was me and my buddy and his dog, and it was kind of earlier in the year. Just, you know, or I don't know, 3 weeks after opening day, I think it was, and we were shooting puddlers, and there was a group of guys behind us, and I swear to God, the only call they knew was the hail call.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there. They had it down good because they tricked us for about 10 minutes. And then my buddy looks over at me and he's like, that is the only call those guys know is the hail call. Because they just I mean, it'd be one bird. It might have been a Tweety bird flying over, but they were throwing the hail call at it. It was hilarious.
I won't lie. I'm victim to it. Call me a dick. Call me whatever you want to call me. But I am... not gonna lie, like I've sat on the side of the road and looked at spreads, because even during videos of, you know, on YouTube and stuff like that, I'm not looking at the kill shots. I'm not looking at how they're calling. I'm looking at, you know, different types of spreads that they have out there. Or I'll sit out there and watch a different group of hunters, which we don't really run into a lot of different hunters. We're you know, lucky enough to where our area is, I'd say 95%, you know, locked down. But we will run into them with scouting different areas, whatever. But anyway, I look at spreads more than anything. But I have been that guy sitting on the side of the road blowing the goose call, and everybody's getting down in the blind and like starting a flag and whatever it is. And it's the funniest thing in the entire world.
Jesus.
But
that's great.
How would you like that? Someone did that to you.
I'd be pissed.
Yeah. Well, I
still laugh at the same time.
Exactly.
That is funny.
I got a question for you, Trevor. So, you know, after kind of switching gears just a little bit, what is one thing, like, after this past year that you went out, what is one thing that you realized, even like it could have been first thing halfway through the season, end of the season now, what is one thing that you really want to get better at, or one thing that you weren't, you know, like, oh, I wish, you know, I wish I could do this better, or I wish, you know, what's one thing that you could think off the top of your head right now?
So early last year, and it goes back to what you guys were just talking about, but early last year I went and I bought 2 cheap calls. I bought a duck call and I bought a goose call. And I can tell you right now, I do not know how to use them.
Oh, I'm terrible.
Back in the day, I used to be pretty good with turkey calling on the slate and with the mouth call, but I just cannot figure out that goose call especially. I can sound like a duck a little bit, but the goose call, I cannot figure it out. Every time I blow it, everybody says, it's from the diaphragm. It's from the diaphragm. I'm like, yeah, I cannot figure this out.
I will say
it's something that I've not learned how to do yet. That's the biggest thing.
With calling wise, though, getting the call down is one thing, but reading the bird is another huge thing that people don't look at. Like they say, oh, I can do this, I can do that, I can do that. Like what is the bird in the air telling you to say to him? Like for the goose and mallard, like if he's fluttering in, are you still hitting him with that hail call, or are you just doing like small like feeder chuckle or drake whistle, or if a goose is coming in, are you still pounding on them? Which, granted, there are some days that they want that, or are you kind of just murmuring and small clucking them? That's the thing where, time is one thing to understand it, but like wanting to understand the bird itself,
right? Knowing what I mean?
Like it takes time to like. And you can even look at that during the scout wise, especially for ducks and mallards. Like, what are those ducks on the ground doing when that bird's circling 10 times and then he comes in or she comes in? Like, what is that goose doing on the ground when that flock's coming in and setting up to come in? Like, what are those birds on the ground doing? Or what are the birds in the air doing? Like, you have to understand, like, if they're banking real hard, like, away from you, like, then what do you do? Like, you got to understand what they want in certain situations.
That's huge to
yeah.
And that comes with obviously like you
experience.
Said scouting
Yeah.
experience,
right.
Because you're not just gonna like you even now it's like you're still probably wondering what does that bird want to hear.
And I will say too, just because the birds flare out, don't look at that lead bird. Always look at that bird in the back, because that bird in the back could always turn that whole entire flock around.
Oh, we've had it.
Like,
they'll circle.
That one bird. It takes that one bird to get that whole flock in that hole, whether it be ducks or geese. Like, just don't give up on them. I mean, there's some times where like you can see them they bank hard and you could just tell they're gone.
Yeah.
But like. If they're just kind of unsure about it, like don't give up on those birds and think they're just done. Like just pick one of the last birds, like, and they will turn that whole entire flock around.
It's crazy to watch.
No, for sure.
You asked me a question. Other than shooting birds, what's your favorite part about the hunt?
Oh my God, I gotta say the banter in the boats is probably my favorite. I always. On the couple deer hunts that I went or, did any other, and I kind of relate it to fishing a lot is like, and I don't know if you guys see it the same, but it's just so much fun being there with your buddies. Cause like a good amount of the time, if you're like, if you're not seeing birds or anything, like you're talking, you're joking around, you're making fun of each other. Like that to me, and that's basically what I look forward to the most part. I mean, we could not see a single bird all day, but 80% of the time you're laughing, just in the boat with your buddies. That's probably like my favorite part of, I mean, obviously like, having a good day, living it out is an unreal feeling, but just, joking around with the guys and hanging out is probably like my favorite.
Absolutely.
Should have had Devin on this podcast.
Oh, jeez. He is the best at the banter inside the blind. Him and your dad, man. I mean, I think, and Jimmy, but
Jimmy called me at 7:00 the other day talking about podcast topics, trying to help me out with topics on it. He's a hell of a man.
Gotta love the guy.
That's
but
incredible.
Wait till you see Jimmy. You'll love him.
Yeah.
I like having breakfast though.
Oh, see, we haven't done that yet.
Oh, we cook a lot of breakfast.
I gotta commit to getting a griddle or whatever out there and make breakfast for everybody, because it is one of my favorite things. Absolutely.
We were just talking. We went out and we were driving around in the boat today, and we're all excited for this upcoming season. And that was the one thing that was probably talked about the most today was like we're gonna bring a grill. We're gonna
Yeah.
bring a skillet and some food this time. Because I mean, when we're getting out there and we set up, it's 4:30 in the morning.
Right.
Either you're napping or you're sitting there playing on your phone. Like there's, you got a lot of time on your hands,
Right.
so might as well just cook some breakfast or like kind of get ready for it. Because other than that, you're sitting there for 2.5, 3 hours. Depending on what time you finally get set up and everything. So
Which we're super lucky because for me, don't touch my decoys. I'll lay out all the decoys, just get them out of the bags, put them in a pile for me, and I'm gonna paint the picture.
yeah,
So I'll do that, and then I don't know. I'd say Jimmy's pretty control of the blinds and stuff like that. Jimmy and Brandon, I'd say.
I usually
Jimmy
try
and
to
Matt.
help those guys out.
Yeah,
and then after
my-
that, I usually ask Kyle if he needs any help with the decoys, and he's like, "No, I'm good."
I got all of them to set up still, but and then my dad's out there cooking breakfast and stuff.
Yeah.
We'll have. He hates eggs, so we don't ever have eggs. But he'll sausage, bacon, just
Breakfast
simple
sandwiches?
Stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Breakfast sandwiches, stuff like that. Nothing crazy. I think we had what was the one? We were doing the traffic field. Did you go on that hunt last year? I think we were
That's
doing
hard. That's a
in the grass
vague
field.
statement right
There
there.
was a grass field that they were in the field next to it. We were running traffic on them.
I don't remember.
But I think we had some like duck poppers out there.
Oh,
and
yep.
I forget what else we had. I think Jimmy brought some duck that he grilled up or something, and then we had some like potatoes and
Yep.
I mean we had some like we've had some really good meals out there that sent me right to the ditch line right away.
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing, man. If I'm not in the ditch in the morning, like, and you're not seeing me for the next 20 minutes, something's wrong.
Oh,
'Cause I'm
boy.
in the ditch 24/7
we
in the
had
mornings.
one. It was opening day was the only time that like we cooked out, and it was we got there the night before. We had kayaks set up,
Mhm.
because on public land, that's the biggest. People take off work. It doesn't matter. They're heading out.
Right.
And so at night, we grilled up some burgers, and then in the morning we had some bacon on. We had some eggs on. That was basically the only time we ever. But it was a fun time. That whole
Yeah.
night, that entire night, it was like 50-mile-an-hour winds and just pouring down rain. It was apparently it's been a tradition with the group of guys that I was hunting to sleep out there for opening day, and apparently it's the last year we're also going to do it because last year was so miserable. I slept like a rock. It was fantastic, but apparently we got rained on. And
It's one of my favorite things to do, honestly. I love it.
oh, I love it. No, it was a blast, but I mean, we did get rained on and 50-mile-an-hour winds, and apparently nobody got sleep but me and my buddy. There was 7 of us out there.
We've gone out there a few times before we really started getting into the fields, and we got out there, me and my buddy, and the started raining. We put the tents out, or like the beaver tail blind up and everything, and the blind collapsed on top of us and got our heater wet, got us soaking wet. Luckily, there was a group of guys behind us that had a fire going on, so we were able to actually get warm, because if they weren't there having a fire, they had like venison cooking up and had food and everything. They were thankfully nice as can be, and let us eat with them and get warm and stuff like that. Luckily, if it wasn't for them guys, we would have been done that night. But staying out there is a whole different like camaraderie, I guess you want to say, of like the hunt itself. Like just getting out there, staying the night, watching the river all night long, and it's. I almost want to do that in the field sometime. Yeah, way to go, Trevor.
I did it again.
Now we got to restart the whole thing. No, I mean I almost want to do that in the field one time. Like we've got out there early, like 3 o'clock, whatever, but and sat there for a while. But I wouldn't mind staying the night out in the field, like just kind of like a traditional thing, though. Like
Yeah.
where maybe we do have a small fire by the trailer, or whatever it is, or a pizza at night, something just like
That'd
a
be cool.
traditional thing. You know what I mean? Not everybody's got to be there, but
Mhm.
we're gonna have an opening day tradition where we're out there.
Yeah, that's and that's like one of the best parts about
That's
ducking.
how you make memories.
Yeah,
You know
no,
what I mean?
that's what I was getting at.
It's like
It's
deer
just-
camp at a fire like late at night.
Yeah, it's like even like to this day, you know, even though it was last year, you know, we'll be sitting there talking and like we'll bring up something funny that happened out on the boat. You know, you know, talking to my buddies, they're like, "Oh man, this one year, like, you know, my buddy left his headlamp on like the whole hunt. We were wondering why we weren't shooting bird." You know, it's like you're just doing goofy stuff that, you know, like you'll forever remember.
It's like Devin opening day at Turkey. We walk up to a spot and I'm like, man, I hope there's not a lot of pickers right here. He's like, "Oh, you want me to turn my headlight in?" And we're like 200 yards away from the roof, same spot. I think I told you about this story, didn't I?
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, Devin, turn your light on so every turkey in the woods can see where we're at right now."
You.
Devin's like, okay.
Yeah, he's like, "All right." Slowly puts, not slowly, but like puts his hand up and it was like slow motion. I'm like, "Are you that dumb to put your headlight on?" He's like, "What?" I'm like, "No, it was a total joke, dude. Like, do not put your headlight on right now. The birds are right there." It was terrible, dude. Terrible.
That's awesome.
I mean, we could even, if you wanted to, could bring in the turkey hunt from you this year. No?
That's up to you, man. I mean,
go ahead.
You get out there. I mean,
let's
sometimes it's early in the morning. You're not thinking, "I've been there, I've done that." But
well, I wasn't talking about bad wise. I was just like experience wise, because this was your first hunt.
Yeah.
In a while.
Wasn't my first hunt that year, but it was my first time shooting a turkey. Kyle was gracious enough to get me out in the field this year to shoot a turkey. By the way, it was awesome.
We were lucky to see one. That
awesome.
That was good.
We were lucky to see one. Just because of the events in the morning.
Yeah. So it's about a 3/4 mile walk.
Somewhere right around there, yeah.
Out to the blind and through a couple fields along the tree line, and the guy we were with, he fell behind a little bit. Mm-hmm. And me and Kyle were walking side by side right along the tree line, and
we're running late a little bit.
We were running a little late. The sun was coming up, and mind you, this was later in the season. The sun was coming up a little earlier than it had been, but you know, we waited up for this person we were with twice, I think, maybe once,
something like that. Yeah.
And we got out ahead another time, and me and Kyle were along the tree line, and we turned back, and
because it's getting light. We're walking, not to cut you off, but
no,
we're walking along the tree line, like, so the birds aren't really catching our full silhouette. They're kind of just seeing something walking across. Because I mean, the birds started waking up. You know, they were up on the roost. So like you stayed tight to the tree line, and this field is a really deep valleyed field, so we didn't want to walk in the woods and do this, that, and the other. Like, we had to stay along the tree line and walk across so they wouldn't like see us perfectly or know exactly what we were. But go ahead.
So we're getting pretty damn close to the blind. Probably, like, we can see the blind almost. Yeah. And me and Kyle stop and look back, and this guy we were with, he was in the middle of the field,
like just
walking, and I mean, it ended up working out.
I stopped. I'm like, "Get over!"
Yeah.
Like, trying to whisper, but like, I think I was being pretty quiet. But I was like, "Get over!
Yeah.
And he's just walking along. I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing?" He's like, "Walking to the blind."
I will say,
oh my god,
we got into that blind within 5 minutes. One time was, I mean, this tells you why you need to be this close to the tree line and being quiet.
60 yards, maybe?
This time was so close to us, and unfortunately, when he jumped out, he went the other way. But
we had a few that morning though that seemed like they were right on the tree line. Or did we see the toms and they walked away?
We saw the tom, or we heard the tom at least jump out of the tree. I mean, it was so close. And
but any second they were like, he was coming out into the field.
Yeah,
but he just never did.
Never did. He ended up going the other way, and Jakes ended up walking out and getting right up on the decoys. And I won't say his name because we were just talking about him a little bit, but man, we doubled up, and I was a little upset. I was very happy, very, very happy. It was the best experience I've had hunting in my lifetime. Never shot a turkey. I've been turkey hunting a lot.
I know this.
But The
Go
guy
ahead,
we're with,
Trevor.
he's talking about his $250, $300 barrel mount camera. I don't know what it's called. What'd you say? Taxicam. And this thing was sweet. He was showing me videos that he's taken with it. It was awesome. And so it makes a little vibration on the barrel when you start recording. And these birds were real close. So he didn't want to turn it on and scare him away. Totally get that. But Kyle...
Mm-hmm. I didn't bring my gun out that
No,
day.
Kyle was sitting right behind us, and he starts recording. I could see him recording while we're waiting for these birds to square up for us to shoot them. And so Kyle's holding his phone,
Well, the problem was
recording.
Jake's kept on spinning around the decoys all fanned out. So
Oh.
they wouldn't give the guys a clear shot. Well, 3 minutes go into this video, and I'm like, I got to delete this one and put a new one. Start a new one, you know?
Yeah. Yep. And then Kyle stops recording, and then he goes 3, 2, 1, shoot. And we doubled up on him, and it did not get on video.
I never hit record.
You never
again.
hit- you
But
just
I
stopped.
had everything on my phone, though. Like, I'm like
No.
sitting here, I'm recording the guys and stuff like that, and I'm like fist bumping them both because like it was the guy's first bird in Michigan, and then it was Trevor's first turkey ever.
Yeah.
And I will say, like the day before, and I think previous times as well, Trevor literally just went out there. Well, let me backtrack here. So this it's hard because, you know, we've been very successful in the field for the last 2 to 3 years, right?
Yeah.
And it is very hard to find people that don't want to just kill; they want to put the work in as well. You know, it's hard to find like I will say, if anybody's listening to this podcast that is new to it or new to a group, that if you find a group, do as much as you possibly can for that group. Whether it's scouting, setting decoys up in the morning, figure out what they want help with, and just be where they want you to be at. Don't sit around and be expecting to come back time and time and time again. You know, like you have to put yourself out there in that group and show that you were willing to put that work in. You know, especially field hunting, like you got to be able to scout, you got to be able to do everything. Especially gas money nowadays, like you have to be helpful.
Something, anything.
Yeah, right. Buy the breakfast in the morning. Or if someone's running late in the morning, like buy the group donuts or something. You know what I mean? It's a little bit different in the boat because once the boat leaves, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
But you know, in the field, like if you know, we get the game plans in the morning or the night before. You know, most of my guys know exactly. I every night before, I tell them time, place, where we're hunting, like what we're hunting in, like what you need to bring. If you need to bring your waders, which is hardly ever.
Right.
You know what we need you to bring a trailer. We need you to haul this. We need you to bring your extra A-frame. Whatever it is, like I have, you know, 3 paragraph long list of what the guys want or need. But be that guy that helps out when they can, you know. But it was nice this year. Like Trevor has helped out a lot with the waterfowl. Trevor came out the morning before he shot his bird and just went out there to film. Didn't bring a gun, didn't bring anything, just filmed for us. And it was almost kind of like fate in a way. Like he went out there and helped film. We got, you know, some pictures. We got some videos that one time that morning before.
That was when the deer and the birds were in the field at the same time, right?
Yeah, they were hammering on the roost, and it sounded like they were right there, and we thought we were going to get onto them, and you know, they just weren't really fired up when they hit the ground. But, you know, the help was much appreciated, and, you know, we got him the bird the next day. Don't be that guy that's always like, where was my bird? Where was this? Where was that? Where's the work at, dude? Where
are you at? You know,
right.
where are you involved in?
And my big thing is, like, if you can't scout because, like, you're working too much or you got the family, you got kids, whatever it is, it's only $20 a week for gas money. Buy me some drinks or whatever at the gas station in the
Or
morning.
a box of shells.
Well, the shells is kind of difficult. Shout out Myra for helping us out with all that stuff. But, you know,
I'll never turn down a box of shells.
help us out with it. I mean, but still, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. But like, help us out, like something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We go to usually we go to our favorite spot, Fenders. Shout out Fenders.
Shout out Fenders.
Uh,
Still trying to get the
Yeah,
sponsor.
we're still trying to. We're working on it. We go to this little bar and grill every single hunt. Like after every single hunt, we, all the guys kind of do like a little recap there or whatever it is. It's a good time. But we go there afterwards. Buy me dinner. You know what I mean? Like, do something. But like I said, Trevor was filming for us. He's helped out a lot for us this year, and for the first time, for a hunter-wise, you couldn't really expect anything more than that without him even knowing what was going on.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was very nice of to see that kind of help back, with everything like this year, even with the blinds though. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I will say sometimes I feel like I'm not even doing enough. Right. I see how much time you put into it, and like I said at the start of this thing, I've been so blessed to have you guys take me in and help me out with this, and it's been so awesome. And I said I wasn't happy about that you weren't
Whatever.
filming that
Never again.
dude. That doubling up on a turkey for my first time like that, it was awesome. It was so cool.
At least he's not like that. Why wasn't it a Tom? No.
Yeah, no, it was awesome to see both those birds go down simultaneously.
It was a very fun.
It was so cool, and I'm appreciative for that. I mean, it was awesome.
And I think, especially even for you knowing like the help that like both of you guys have done for me, whether it be for the podcast stuff or help with whatever.
Yeah, was I even supposed to be on this podcast today?
Well, let's talk about that.
I knew the answer. I knew the answer to that question before I asked it. By the way.
Let's talk about that at a different time. But like the amount of time that I've known both of you guys, it seems like it's more of just like me and Trevor have been friends for a little over a year now. For you, I don't know, a few months maybe.
It was just this summer basically.
Right. So I mean, it seems like we've been friends forever though. At the same time now.
Oh, 100%.
So with all that stuff, like I couldn't thank you guys enough for what you guys do or what you're helping out or if I need something, you guys are always there, and I really do appreciate that though.
Of course.
So that's
Is
why
Nolan going to get in the field this year?
absolutely not.
No.
I didn't think so. I didn't think he was built for it.
At least
Yeah.
not if you're there.
Oh, jeez.
Only if Devin's there, dude. Only if Devin's there.
Devin and Jimmy.
And his stepdad Jimmy. Yep. Jimmy's he's got to come in here. What the guys are wanting to do though is get the guys in for a podcast, the crew in for a podcast. So
Gonna need a couple extra mics.
well, I think it's gonna be 2 people per mic.
Yeah,
whatever it may be,
for
'cause
sure.
I think that might get a little bit rowdy in here.
I don't know if that can be contained.
I'm definitely gonna need like 3 fans in here because it's gonna get hot.
3 fans, you're gonna have to lock the beer fridge or.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jimmy might get a little out of control. But one thing I did have written down. Do you guys have anything else written down?
I feel like we could just keep going on.
Yeah,
and
I
on.
do too.
This could be a 7-hour podcast. if
No,
we
I
really
do too,
try.
which is good though because I feel like the whole point of this podcast is for new and upcoming hunters, that have these questions. Maybe they have been into it for a year or 2 years, 3 years, whatever it may be. But
Yeah.
for guys like they've been in the water, but what about the field? Like, let me trickle into the field a little bit. Like, that's the whole point of all of this.
I think this was cool because me and Nolan, it seems, we've been in it for the same amount of time, but our experience has been completely different.
100%.
Yeah, and that's the funny part is, I mean, we're doing the same thing, but completely different.
Right.
Just 2 completely different experiences.
Right. I mean, did you have any other questions though?
I think me and you have the same thing written down.
Okay, I see it now. But what do you have? You got anything else? Like blinds?
I mean, how much longer you want to keep talking?
However long you guys want.
So the only thing that I was gonna mention was last year setting up the A-frames. I was involved in that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of work that goes into that.
A lot of work.
I mean, let's be honest. A lot of the days that we're hunting, it's Saturday, Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're a little hungover, or sometimes you
Sometimes.
didn't. Hey, come on. Sometimes you didn't get much sleep, and knocking those A-frames out, it feels like a little sense of accomplishment in the morning. Sure does, but you don't always want to do it. And I'm excited now this year. You've got one in the field now, and it sounds like you're setting up another one that
Hopefully
we're going to go
this
out.
upcoming weekend. Yeah.
A couple permanent blinds.
Yep.
That's going to be cool. That is going to be cool. You excited for that?
Yeah, and I'm super excited for it because it's going to cut down a lot of the time. We still have a lot of work to do to them, like with brushing in and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
I do kind of want to backtrack on that question though. It is getting late, so we probably do got to cut it pretty soon. But I do want to backtrack on. Yeah. I think it was the first hunt you went on. Maybe it was the first, within the first 5 anyway.
Okay.
So I wake up.
Oh,
Trevor's
no.
got a wedding that he went to the night before. I wake up.
Oh, no.
I love this story.
You've heard this already.
Yeah.
So Trevor's sitting in the street on the side of the road that he is not allowed to park on. His glasses are down. He's passed out right in front of the house. I start shaking the door, beating on the glass before I start busting in the window. And all of a sudden, I finally wake him up. He pushes his glasses down to the tip of his nose, looks at me, waves at me. Was it a wave? I think it was a wave.
It was a wave.
And then puts his glasses back on and then passes right back out like I never woke him up. And it was the funniest thing ever, just because it was he was new to the group, and I'm like, oh great, this is how it's gonna go. He's gonna be hammered every single hunt, and this hunt should be a good one. I don't even remember what hunt that was on.
I don't know either.
But it was
early on.
It was so funny to see that. But I mean, the layout or the A-frames is huge. I am not really a big fan of layout blinds, which.
We did it once last year, and it rained, and
it was terrible.
The entire morning, rain was just falling into my eyeballs.
Yeah, it was terrible. I mean, with the amount of guys that we have, the layout blinds are very tough. You can't always tell, or can't always conceal everybody, I feel like, in those, because everybody wants to see those birds. Everybody wants to see what's going on, and it's tough. I would rather find a ditch line or something where I can try to call those birds into it, which, like we said earlier, there's the X within the X, but to try to pick that spot and get those birds in there. And that was a big thing last year. Where I think I mentioned it to you, where even if we have 4 to 5 A-frames out there to make our own ditch line, even if we don't even need that many out there, but to have something to make more of a ditch line, it helps out so much more. I would rather hunt out an A-frame, and it's more of a natural shooting position. It's just like shooting out of a boat standing up. It's more of a natural than a sit up and then shoulder and then get after it. Which I'm not dogging on anybody that's shooting out of a layout blind or likes layout blinds better, but I just so much would rather shoot out of an A-frame. And sometimes that's all you have is layout blinds.
I mean, if there's no ditch line where you want to hunt, how are you gonna hunt?
I mean,
if there's no,
it depends on. It all depends though, because are we hunting a bean field? Are we hunting corn stalks?
Yeah, it definitely does.
That if we're hunting a bean field, I hate to do it, but I'm probably setting up on a tree line point in a field where we can kind of get away with that compared to in the middle of a field just sitting there.
Yeah, I mean, the layout blinds, it was a cool experience to do. I've only done it once. It was a one and done thing. It It was cozy though. I will say that.
Yeah,
Until it started raining, it was cozy.
I do want to say too, you know, for new hunters going out, you know, you start knocking on doors, you get to know some farmers that allow permission from like to multiple people. Get to know the people that also have permission on it. That way,
Yes.
you guys can plan something out. You guys can plan hunts together. You guys aren't getting to the field and trying to race and fight in the fields, because that is going to ruin the relationship with the farmer. He's going to either end it all or end it for you for getting a call at 4 a.m. Be the bigger person. Let them hunt with you.
Yep.
You're going to get those guys out there that they don't want nothing to do with you. It just is what it is. If they beat you to the spot and they don't want to hunt with you, whatever, just move on. And that's why we always try to have plan A, B, and C.
Yep.
Which, granted, we don't have to run into it a lot, but you always have those other plans just in case crazy events happen. So just don't be that guy out there that isn't open for different groups. Because, I mean, I've met people on the road scouting my fields before and have became friends with those guys, invited them on hunts, and you know, you never know what's going to happen or who you're going to meet or who your friends are going to be. Just be open-minded to those situations.
So for me, I mean, as a new hunter, whether you want to hunt with a bunch of people or you want to get into it yourself and kind of do your own thing, Nolan, I think you mentioned it earlier, watching birds. I mean, that's a great thing to start with, for sure. And second, make connections.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But
build your network.
Be careful in it's tough because you want to build those connections.
Yeah.
Not to cut you off, but be careful with who those connections are, because a lot of people nowadays get very greedy with certain things.
Yeah. But I mean, building those connections, whether or not you're going to be out with them every weekend or you're going to go out with them one time, learn something. Right? Observe, see what they're doing. Does it work? Does it not work?
There's always
something to learn.
Right.
Whether or not you're doing something right or wrong, there's always something to learn. And then from there, stick with it. Right. I mean, it's easy to give up on something if you're not seeing success. You have to grind it out.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that.
So.
Yeah, I'd probably say, you know, just kind of final things, just try everything, you know, like, I mean, my experience for the most part has been, I don't know what's going on. Oh, that might have been mine.
But whatever.
You know, it's like my experience has been water, diver hunting, and I'm looking forward to getting out into the field this year, you know, learning a whole bunch, you know.
I thought Kyle said you weren't allowed to come.
Not in our
not
field.
with Kyle.
Yeah, okay, not with Kyle.
No,
Just
I'm just
okay.
going to hunt his fields without him.
Oh,
That's
okay,
kind of my
yeah,
goal this year.
Yeah, he's gonna be doing some other rub and tug place with some other guys.
Yeah. That's what I figured.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure.
I'm just excited.
Not with us and Devin, dude. We can only have, I'd say you're a redhead, no?
You could consider me that. Yeah, sure.
Cherry blonde. We can only have one blonde or redhead in the field.
And then
that's Devin.
I guess we're going to have a duel then.
I'd love to see it, dude. Let's plan it out. September 1st in the blind.
Opening day, we're going to see.
You know, the location will be determined, but yeah, it's going to happen. So if anybody wants to come out and see that redheaded
Nolan,
duo,
back to what
Yeah, it'll be announced on Great Lakes Outdoors, Instagram, Facebook.
Yep.
Nolan, back to what you were saying. Sorry to cut you off.
No, but no, I'm just, you know, and that's kind of the biggest thing for me is just like, you know, just get out there and try it. Just, you know, lay in.
You're going to fail.
Yeah, you're going to fail.
But learn from the mistakes.
That's huge. You know, it's going to feel real good when you win, you know.
Yeah.
When you finally get them and you finally get a good pattern, when you, like, it's probably one of the best feelings.
I agree. I think the last thing that me and you had both on our list was old Jack Miner.
Yep.
So, I brought up Jack Miner the other day to you, and you were unaware of Jack Miner.
And I was told to wait till this podcast.
Yeah. So Jack Miner was a guy out of Canada. I don't know. Do you know who Jack Miner is? So
Yeah.
Jack
Yeah.
Miner is a guy out of Canada, Kingsville, Ontario. He grew up like a bird lover, and he grew up on a family farm, and this, that, and the other. He started digging ponds at the farm, and the clay that he was digging, like, it was just like, I want to say like, I could be way off on this, but he started digging ponds because he started seeing birds like show up, and he was digging ponds for them for like sanctuaries and everything, and the clay was perfect for the ponds. It was holding water good, and he started wanting to see what birds were returning, so he started banding the birds himself. So Jack Miner,
Had this been done anywhere else in the world
not that I'm aware
before?
of.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of. So Jack Miner is his own banding sanctuary. Like it's
Right.
the only banding sanctuary that I am aware of. The problem is lately the fundings and the what's the word I'm looking for? People aren't wanting to help out with the banding sites for it all. I don't know why it's a little bit static.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It just happened.
Yeah, I don't understand that. But so the fundings and the people helping out are almost like just disappearing. So they might be done within the next few years, just because there's not a lot of people that are helping. But so Jack Miner started putting. He was a very like religious guy.
Yeah.
And I want to say that he was hunting, and that's how like they lived, and he started falling in love with like the waterfowl aspect of everything. They have like a Jack Miner school over there in Kingsville. They have days where the kids come over and see the sanctuary, and they band the birds themselves, or they used to band the birds themselves, and they have Bible verses on all the bands, and it is like the absolute holy grail of all bands in the country.
That's
Like,
incredible.
If you shoot a Jack Miner band, like, you are someone. And he is literally right across the lake from us, even though we don't shoot a lot of them over here. A lot
Right.
of them are traveling towards like Kentucky, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, which is kind of weird that we don't have more over here, but it is like the absolute holy grail of bands. Like, just reading the Bible quotes on them, they're all double banded. It's got one federal band and then one Jack Miner band on one leg.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a couple podcasts out there that really get into details about like Jack's life, and super interesting. I started doing a lot of research on that, and I mean it's an incredible story in itself. But
What species do they band?
I think they banned all like puddlers. I don't think they banned too many divers, because it's more of an inland like sanctuary that they have.
Right.
They're mostly known for, I'd say, the mallards and the geese. I think they've banded like wood ducks and teal and stuff like that, but not as many as mallards and geese. It kind of just depends on what visits the sanctuary.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's a huge thing though, that more and more people need to start like realizing, like, this waterfowl industry, whether you believe it or not, is slowly declining because of, whether it be helping the refuges out with cleanup days or whatever it may be, like just to help out with whatever you can, whenever you can. Give up a day that you're not doing anything besides sitting on the couch. Like, just help out where you can.
Yeah. I wonder if that's something.
Help out.
I mean, I don't know what's around here that we could help out with, but I wonder if that's something we
Point
could
Goulet
do.
would be the closest.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know you're involved with them a little bit. But
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, and if that's something that anybody is interested in, I can get information very easily on that and where we could all help out. But, yeah, that's kind of the story with Jack.
Awesome.
It's not kind of like the whole recap, but I don't
Gives you
wanna
enough
say
information.
too much without really knowing like
yeah.
the straight up facts about it all. but a guy that would really give back to the community and really cared about waterfowl as a species with it all.
Yeah, dude, it's incredible.
So, but anything else from you guys? It's getting late. It's
No.
Monday night
No.
while we're recording this.
It's great
anyway.
talking to
I
you
think
guys.
That's about it, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
I think maybe down the road we do another one, like maybe mid-season or something like that. Kind of get some recaps of
Yeah. Absolutely.
where we're at, what we've been learning. You know,
I think
maybe
on
get
that
in-
one you could talk a lot more as to what's going on
I'd like to
Yeah.
mid-season
I'd
too.
like to get one of my very experienced diver hunting buddies on here, and
Yeah.
maybe we could have like a kind of a more in depth diver versus puddlers. That I feel like that'd be pretty cool.
I agree.
Because
I mean, these conversations for us three anyway, I feel like can just go on and on. And,
Yeah. We could definitely keep going into the middle of the night, but
Right.
I gotta work.
Me too. But no, this podcast will probably drop in 2 weeks, I'd say. So we're probably base season will be already done, but we will be there at least one of the days. Point Moulet's coming up. We'll be there for sure. We'll probably be with GK booth. We'll have a Great Lakes booth already set up there as well. Check out GK calls for sure. You guys got any questions about their calls or Migra? Big shout out to Migra. They help us out a ton. Great guys over there. If you guys have any questions about those guys as well, let us know. And like I said before, if you guys have any questions or things you want us to talk about on the podcast, let us know on our Instagram at Great Lakes Outdoors or Facebook. We're on Facebook as well. But I appreciate you guys coming on.
Thanks for having
yeah,
me.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate
it.
the short notice, kind of quick thing. But until next time.
Absolutely.
Awesome.